After pandemic related eviction moratoriums darn near bankrupted thousands of landlords throughout the country, now they are using fees and charges in order to make up the difference. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over the fact that landlords are charging a lot more fees and charges for things that they didn't used to charge fees for, right? And the reason this is happening has to do with one, our costs are going up a lot, and we have to be able to cover our costs, our increased expenses. Inflation is affecting everyone, including those of us who run landlord businesses, okay? So yeah, two, the other thing is there are a lot of regulations in places that make it very difficult for landlords to just flat increase the rent. Okay. But not all of those areas they have laws against charging fees. Okay. So landlords, they found an interesting way to be able to increase the amount of rent that, I mean, not rent, but the money coming in without increasing the rent and being able to stay within the law. So they're getting a little bit creative on people. And the third thing I want to mention is that psychologically, I think a tenant or a customer at any business, right, they feel like they're getting a better value when they see that low base price, right? And that's great. But once you add all the taxes and everything in, stuff usually costs more. But psychologically, it is nice to be able to attract customers using a lower base cost and then adding fees on top of that. Okay. The other thing is, I believe that a lot of landlords, they use fees and fines, etc., to discourage negative behavior from tenants, right? So if you don't want a tenant parking a bunch of cars in the parking lot, right? Then you'll be like, oh, well, there's a multi-car fee. If you don't want a tenant just leaving a whole bunch of junk down at the dumpster all the time, well, maybe you have a valet trash service fee. Stuff like that. Okay, it discourages negative behavior. It keeps your place cleaner and smoother operating, and it may generate extra income on top of that, right? And I see that as being no problem as long as we are, letting the tenants know about all these fees before they sign the lease or when they sign the lease. Okay, I mean, that's the truth of the matter. If we're letting the people know, hey, yes, you will be paying these fees, or if something happens, then these fees apply, then there should be nothing wrong with that. They are signing a contract, they are agreeing to paying that stuff, and there's no problem. Of course, obviously the tenant rights groups and the politicians, they see this as, like we're the big bad, we're the evil ones, right? Well, don't blame us if you didn't read the contract you signed, okay? So anyway, let's get into this article and see what it says. This article is coming from KTLA.com, and it says, landlords start nickel and diming tenants with fees. Yeah. I mean, like I said, this is the way that we have to go about doing our business. And it's rough times, okay? But anyway, let's get into the article. It's already very expensive to rent in a hot housing market like Southern California. Now, landlords have found a way to make things even worse. A growing number of property owners and managers are hitting tenants with extra fees each month, a nickel and diming of people that the airlines, for one, have made a core aspect of their business model. It's been common for years for landlords to charge more for a parking space or having a pet. The new fees being levied, which might run an additional $5 or $10 each, cover a wide range of once gratis services, including trash pickup, pest control, use of a mailbox, and routine maintenance requests. And yeah, if you look at businesses throughout the entire country, right, you'll notice that fees at a lot of these businesses have increased. A lot of businesses. I mean, that is how, when you go to the store and you buy something, or when you're paying for a service, right, it is hard to say, hey, we had to double the cost of this service and still be able to attract customers to you. Well, it's the same with us. We're a business just like the airlines are a business, just like the cruise lines or your plumber or anyone else. We're operating a business in the exact same manner, right? And it is very difficult for us to say, hey, your rent, it was $1,000 a month, but now I have to raise it up to $1,500 a month. And, but what you can do is you can say, hey, your rent was $1,000 a month. I rose it up to $1,200 a month, but there are these additional fees if you want this, if you want to have a pet, if you, want an additional parking spot, etc. If you want extra storage space, you're going to have to pay these extra fees. And you know what? There should be no problem with that. Long as, like I said before, as long as you are upfront as a landlord with your tenants about the fees that are coming. Now, I do have a problem with any landlord who says, oh, well, we just implemented this fee. We didn't tell the tenants about it. They didn't, sign any contract agreeing to it for, just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a fee for something that used to be free. Well, I disagree with that, okay? I don't think that's a good way to do business, right? But simple solution to that would be wait till the lease renewal after 12 months or whatever, and then tell the tenant about those fees, okay, and then start implementing them at that point in time. A lot of this, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. A lot of this stuff used to just be called rent, Mike Vraw, a Minnesota tenant attorney, told the Wall Street Journal. Now, apparently, it's gravy. Just as airlines once doled out pillows, blankets, and other amenities as a free service, now these goodies are a revenue source. Landlords, many of whom faced financial challenges during the pandemic, apparently think a few new revenue streams would work for them as well. As a result, some now charge fees for moving in and moving out. Some have fees for lease administration. One Minnesota landlord collects a $100 January fee on the first month of the year, a January fee. Yeah, and you might say to yourself, well, this isn't right. This isn't fair. Well, would you consider it more fair if the landlord just had a higher rent? Okay? I mean, if all the stuff adds up and it comes out to be the same, what does it matter if it's a fee or if it was charged as rent? It is the exact same thing. Okay. Now, in those places where landlords aren't able to raise the rent, like they're talking, this article is actually written by KTLA, which is, they're talking about Southern California, right? A lot of jurisdictions there actually have laws against rent increases. So they have, rent stabilization or rent control laws in these places, right? And I don't know the specifics of those laws, but maybe those fees are not included. And, I know fees in some places are included in, they're considered part of a rent increase, but maybe not in some places. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but that might be part of the reason why the landlords are saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and charge this, especially if it's something that's irregular. If it's a irregular thing, not something that you do every single month, then I could see those fees applying and being much more useful. In suburban Phoenix, a number of buildings are instructing tenants to leave their garbage near the front door and then slapping them with a $30 monthly fee for someone to schlep the garbage to a dumpster. I could carry the trash 50 feet to the dumpster, tenant Debbie Giannaccini complained to the Journal. She says she moved out of a building that started imposing a valet fee for trash. And you know what? That's your right. That is absolutely your right. If you don't want to pay a fee for valet trash, then so be it, right? A lot of landlords, I remember I heard about valet trash the first time almost 10 years ago. Okay. It was something that was just being implemented in the Phoenix area. I used to own a apartment building in Phoenix, and it was something that was just being started being implemented back then, and people were complaining about it, but landlords were putting it in place anyway because it was a great revenue generator, and it also resolved the issue of just crazy garbage being thrown into dumpsters. Like you go out to the dumpster and people just they leave huge messes out at them all the time. I can't tell you how many times it happened to me in my apartment building where I had to call in a garbage service to come in and remove all the old crappy mattresses and furnitures and junk that people tried to throw in my dumpster. Okay, it sucked. Okay, but with a valet trash service, you could have the dumpster locked, and then the person who handles the trash service is the only one who has access to it, and you don't end up with a whole bunch of garbage laying all over it that you have to take care of. Rents rose by 25% from early 2021 to summer of 2022 as landlords sought to make up for pandemic losses. For many people, therefore, added fees are just another kick in the teeth. An executive at one Midwest apartment company told the Journal that the firm more than doubled its income from fees at nearly 2 dozen rental properties. People pay it, the executive said. That's because people need a place to live. It doesn't justify the practice. Yeah, actually, it does justify the practice. If people did not want to pay it, they have the right to move on to somewhere that, where they can pay the amount that they want to pay. That is the truth. Okay? If they don't want to pay it, they can move on to somewhere else. Nobody is forcing them to stay in your place and pay the fees if you don't want to stay there. So, interesting article. I know it was written more from the tenant's perspective, but in my mind, I have no problem with landlords charging fees or raising extra money by doing getting creative like this. Okay, and my big gripe is that they're trying to shut this stuff down, make it impossible for us to do this, and try to implement like nationwide rent control and stupid garbage like that would destroy not only our businesses but affordable housing for all the people who actually do need it.